once again to discuss things.
Hi everyone, welcome to another Geeky Gentleman character discussion. I am Sid Partu. Joining me today is...
Wait, I'm back?
Yeah, you're back from outer
Wow.
space. You just walked in here with that sad look upon your face.
Yeah.
I should have changed the stupid lock. I should have made you leave your key.
I'm back.
Yes, and you've decided that today we shall discuss what character?
Today we're discussing Wilson Fisk, aka the KingPin.
Indeed. So KingPin's a character who's been kind of gaining some steam, some popularity. He was, pretty well received in the first season of Daredevil a couple years back. He was just in Spider-Verse, and yeah, I don't know. He just had his own comic series. I think last year he had a mini-series that was pretty good. KingPin's been gaining some steam lately.
Yeah, I've always dug KingPin as a Marvel villain. Of just this idea of what makes him so cool is that he's just a normal guy. He's a gangster, but he's invokes so much terror and respect at the same time.
Yeah, Kingpin's interesting because he's one of the most subversive Marvel villains, I feel. You look at him, and he's this big, rotund gentleman, is the polite way to put it. He's a big fat guy. And so you look at that, and you're like, oh, okay, so he's obviously kind of like a Jabba the Hutt type, where he can't really do anything on his own, but he's just so powerful because of all these minions. But if someone can break through the minions, then he's putty. And then it works every time when Kingpin just kicks the shit out of somebody. It's holy crap, when you realize just how powerful he is, that it's not fat, it's all muscle.
Yeah.
It's just
actually
frightening.
his I know he looks big and flabby, but that's kind of like a lot of power lifters you see in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And he's always in the suit, so it hides muscle definition. It's such a cool and subversive idea that, and I'll hit on Stan Lee every so often when it's he took credit for stuff he didn't do, but I'm pretty sure that was all Stan Lee.
Yeah.
That was one of the few purely Stan Lee kind of brilliant ideas there. And I gotta say, it's just, damn, that's a cool ass idea. Such a subversion of your expectations.
Yeah. I was recently reading a comic with him in it, and it was him and Dr. Doom working together, and Doom throws an insult at Fisk, and then Fisk grabs Doom, takes the full blast from Doom's armor, and goes, "Piece of advice: if you're gonna make someone kneel, make sure you keep them down," and then throws him off a building.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay then. Yeah, Kingpin's he is a real powerhouse in the Marvel cinematic universe, in the Marvel villain universe. It's impressive how, when you think about what Kingpin of crime means, how utterly frightening that is for New York. That every single little crime that happens in the city, Kingpin gets a cut. From diamond heist to purse snatchers, Kingpin gets a piece. And that's crazy. There's the epitome of scary for organized crime.
Yeah. I do like how he is just so, like you said earlier, subversive, in that he is kind of mentioned like a monster in the shadows sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
He's everyone answers to him in New York, whether you be a drug dealer or just, like a crime boss yourself. You answer to Fisk.
Definitely. That's one thing I really like. I'm reading the current Killmonger comic, and in that, Eric Killmonger is trying to assassinate Claw, and he's interrupted by these mercenaries who take him to Fisk. He's like, and Fisk looks at him and says something to the effect of, "I have no in my heart, no love in my heart for Ulysses S. Claw, but he is necessary to me right now, so you will not be allowed your vendetta." And Killmonger just kind of mouths off to him and says, "Man, I'm the smartest person in this room, so you better just kill me because I'm going after that guy regardless." And Fisk is like, "Fine," and just orders the mercenaries to kill Killmonger. It's kind of just a crazy badass scene that you can put one of the best Marvel villains from the MCU, and the characterization in the new comic is very much in line with that. With the Michael B. Jordan performance, you got one of the best characters in the MCU up against comic book Fisk, and comic book Fisk just fills the room with dread. So really, he cuts an imposing character,
Yeah, and what I like is that I think what makes him scary for me is how he can just destroy your life, much like with Penguin, but on a more personal scale.
Yeah, and I think we talked about that a little bit when we talked about the Penguin videos. It seems like Penguin kind of invented the shtick, but everyone else kind of does it a little bit better.
And Fisk is at the top at that list?
Yeah, Fisk and Luthor are kind of near the top of that list, and it just it's just hard not to be like, yeah, that's just, he's scarier about it. I don't know.
Like that scene in Born Again where one guy backs out and he makes an offense to Fisk, and then he instantly apologizes and he leaves the room, and then Fisk turns to his right-hand man and goes, "He's going on a ski trip, right? Have both legs broke."
Damn. yeah, shit like that. It's just, it's scary. The level of power that he has and the level of control. One thing that I find really interesting that seems pretty consistent across the board for Kingpin is the relation to his former wife and son. That seems pretty consistent whenever we do Kingpin origin stuff, that they either leave him or they die because of his actions. My favorite version of it, because there's something that's kind of what goes on in Into the Spider-Verse, but my favorite version of it is in Punisher Max Kingpin, where Fisk has this whole plan to make himself the kingpin of crime, and he's kind of pulling the wool over the entire New York Mafia's eyes to do it, and just one guy catches on and threatens Fisk's child, has a gun to his kid's head, and he's like, "Now you're gonna give up and you're gonna hand your entire plan over to me, or I'm gonna kill your son." And Fisk is like, "No," and he lets his son be killed because the power's more important to him than the family. And I just remember, I remember how awful the scene is after that, where he's killed the guy that killed his son in order to maintain power, and his wife is just broken, and he looks at her and says, "We can have another one." And it's just the coldest of calculations possible, because it's I can only have one chance at becoming the kingpin of crime. I can have another son. And that's just, it's just chilling. I believe that's Jason Aaron, and he just, whew.
And what I've noticed is that Aaron will do he will try his hardest to eke the Kingpin into anything he writes.
Yeah?
Yeah, like when he was doing Wolverine, he had a story arc when Kingpin actually ruled the New York chapter of the Hand, and he involved Wolverine in it.
Huh. That's cool. So let me ask you this. How do you feel Kingpin works as a villain outside of New York?
I think like it's very much like it's kind of fun because it's more like into the wilderness because it's only people seem to forget he's the Kingpin of New York. There are other crime lords throughout the world, but at the same time he kind of composes himself as this kind of force. So it's always like it's cool to see him out of his element, but at the same time he is like how he carries himself. It's always in his element. Even like I remember reading one comic where he's like, whenever I step into a room outside of New York, I have this fear that I have a fear for a second that someone's going to come up behind me and blow my brains out. You know what I do? I break Fear's neck and walk in the room.
Oh, that is a great ass line. Oh man, yeah, that's kind of the attitude I have, where I'm like, I don't want him to have like the same level of power and influence in other cities and such, but at the same time, I really don't want him to be like afraid to leave New York, you know? That's the distinction that I feel is just really important is New York is where he is powerful. But if it's also his prison, then that kind of, you know, that diminishes him in too much of a way. So I like him to be certainly less powerful outside of New York, to just have to rely on contacts that are, you know, global contacts and not necessarily as loyal to him as people in New York are required to be. But I do think it works well if he's got more of that limited resources outside New York as opposed to being completely powerless.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this, Ian. Who do you like Kingpin fighting more? Spider-Man, Daredevil, or Punisher? Like, who do you think like works best out of those three as his main enemy?
I have to say Daredevil. Even though I like Daredevil the least out of those three characters. It's not that I don't like Daredevil, it's just he's definitely the one I find the least interesting out of those three. And I think it's pretty much Miller that made Kingpin Daredevil's main villain, right? Is that fair to say?
That was fair to say, but like it feels more like because Spider-Man, even though, I mean, I like Spider-Man and Kingpin's rivalry because obviously he did start as a Spider-Man villain, but like at the same time, it's a little more like even playing field with Matt.
That and just Kingpin feels so out of Spider-Man's element in a way. Like, I like that Kingpin, through just raw human strength, is able to be a problem for Spider-Man. And I like that the crime thing affects what Spider-Man's able to get done in the city. But, I don't know, it just, Daredevil feels so much more down-to-earth and gritty, and it feels so much more natural with Daredevil and Kingpin. Frank Castle, I think that argument would almost go to Frank Castle, but you have to stop short because there's absolutely no reason that Frank Castle wouldn't just kill the guy, you know?
With Wilson and Matt's rivalry, it's more like Matt has to prove on a moral high ground that he can beat Kingpin without killing him. Hence,
Matt's got like his whole thing wrapped up in the law. You know, he needs to be able to take Kingpin down lawfully. Is what it comes down to. So yeah, just I don't know. Like Kingpin comes off as kind of corny, kind of cheesy with Spider-Man, but when you put him in the room with Daredevil and Punisher, it does feel much colder, much more violent. You know, it feels much more real and scary in that way. Which just, you know, it just doesn't work as well with Spider-Man, in my opinion. Though, I do like what Kingpin does for Peter's character, if that makes sense.
And I did like how they utilized him in Spider-Verse.
Oh yeah, that was excellent. Don't get me wrong, it's not that Kingpin's a problem with Spider-Man, it's that you kind of gotta change what he is. He's no longer a crime boss, he's more of a supervillain once you get Spider-Man there. And that's just what makes it weird. So like Spider-Verse is a great film and I love it. It's far from my favorite version of Kingpin. Because, he's like, oh, I need this dimensional portal thingy. And I'm like, that's just not the kind of Kingpin writing I find fascinating. And it works perfectly well for the film. It's totally serviceable in the film, and it's fine. It's just not the kind of thing I prefer with Kingpin. I prefer the more, I want to fucking crush Daredevil's skull because he's ruining my business. Like, that's the kind of shit that I like.
Yeah.
Yeah. You watch Monkey and Apple videos by chance?
Odd choice of wording, but no.
No. The channel Monkey and Apple.
No, I've never heard of it.
Oh, you probably have and you just don't know it. They got, like, really popular post The Dark Knight because they did the whole Batman interrogation scene that, like, Joker couldn't understand a word he was saying.
Oh, it's those guys. Okay.
Yeah. So he did a video a couple months back, and it's just, or a couple years ago now, actually. And it just cracks me the fuck up, where it's like, he's playing Kingpin, and he's also playing a henchman of Kingpin's, and the henchmen go to report that Spider-Man's breaking into the facility. They're on the roof, and Kingpin's like, go down, fight him. And one guy goes off, and the other henchman just stands there. He's like, I told you to go. Like, yeah, I know, but I quit. I don't want to fight Spider-Man. He's clearly like a 15-year-old kid. He makes fun of you while he beats the shit out of you. I can't deal with that. I don't have the emotional stability to be okay with this. And I understand that you will beat the shit out of me, and you may even kill me, but you know what? No, I can accept that because you're a person as opposed to this fucking kid that crawls on walls and shit. And like that whole like bit, I think, actually really works as to the levels of weird and overlap that exist between Kingpin and Spider-Man. Where it's like, he cuts an imposing figure, but the second you put like superpowered people in there with like, super strength and that stuff, it's not that it doesn't work, it's that the context changes substantially. And so it feels different with Kingpin and Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I was saying with Frank Castle, I think Kingpin could be a great villain for Frank Castle on a limited basis. It worked really, really well in Punisher Max. But eventually, Frank Castle needs to kill him. That's one of them has to die. And it doesn't quite work if you don't follow through with that,
Right.
Yeah. What else can we talk about with Kingpin? Design stuff. What's favorite for you as far as Kingpin design? Really good artist rendering of Kingpin.
The David Mazzucchelli and how he draws him. He looks big, and you can tell he's, robust. But at the same time, he looks physically imposing, even though despite being incredibly large.
Mm-hmm.
I also enjoyed how he looked in the Spider-Man cartoon in the 90s.
Oh yeah, I like that look for him because it got that thing of big and appears fat, but it's actually all muscle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a good design. The design from Spider-Verse is based off of one really famous artistic interpretation of Kingpin, and I can't remember the name of it. But I really did like just the abstract weirdness of that. That was a really, really cool look.
I think that was taken from the noir version of Kingpin.
It might have been. Someone posted some art from the comic side by side with images of Kingpin from the film, and it is, yeah, it's clearly in reference to that, and it is such a cool and striking design, and it gives him this, you know, kind of otherworldly, really, you know, imposing and consuming design that is just really, really cool. I did quite like that design as far as just really extravagant strangeness. Other stuff, design stuff. This might sound weird, but I really like the look Michael Clarke Duncan gave for him in the Daredevil film from 2003.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, he's got the same thing. Michael Clarke Duncan comes off as looking just a bit more muscle than fat or anything, but he just looks like a big guy.
Yeah.
The
physical, like the size or scale to him to Kingpin, you're good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had like the glass cane and the dark gray suit. That was one of those casting decisions where I never would have called it, but as soon as I saw it on screen, it was just fantastic, you know? Always really impressed with that one. So yeah, I really like that design, or that take on the character. I thought Michael Clarke Duncan did a lot for that movie. What else is like a good version of Kingpin out there? I mean, I'll say I really like Punisher Max Kingpin's look for him. Very realistic design and stuff there too.
Yeah. Of course, like you can't go without talking about like the Netflix Daredevil, the Netflix series Kingpin of, that Vincent D'Onofrio just kills it every time he's on screen. Oh boy, here we go.
Hot take time. I agree. I don't like that version of Kingpin almost at all. This is one of those things where I'm like, you are absolutely right. It is a dynamite performance. It is incredibly impressive. It fits perfectly within the story they're telling. Everything about it is objectively good. I don't like it because it's not the kind of take on the character I enjoy. So like, it does not work for me on a personal level, because he's just not the same kind of guy. He's very much Netflix Kingpin, at least with the stuff I watch, because I did drop off, so this may have changed over time. Netflix Kingpin seemed more like he was a guy trying to create the persona of this, larger-than-life crime boss who is to be feared. And I prefer Kingpin to just be this larger-than-life crime boss who is to be feared.
Did you watch the third season? Or
no.
Should I say final season? That's the Kingpin you get.
So he eventually gets there?
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool and all.
I mean, he's already there from the get-go.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's cool and all. I don't particularly care because Netflix kind of lost me somewhere along the line in Daredevil season 2. I've watched Defenders after that. It was watched Jessica Jones. Really liked the first season of that, but then just fell off during the second season. Couldn't get into Luke Cage. Lost me by the end of the first season. Never even bothered with Iron Fist. Netflix Marvel just kind of lost me somewhere along the line, and I never really have much desire to go back to it because it's just too much.
I'd say let's try season 3 of Daredevil. At least give it that.
No.
No, that's Ian 2018.
Ian 2019.
Excuse me. No.
No,
Yeah,
I just have no interest. It just lost me, and part of it's because of the choices made early on. It's like I agree that it's a good performance, that it fits. I just don't like it. It's. I'm trying to think of another famous example of this, where like someone did a thing with the character and really on every level, it is objectively a good choice, but it just on a personal level it doesn't satisfy. And I don't have an example ready in mind, but that's kind of where I'm at with Netflix Kingpin.
All right.
What else can we talk about? Or you got anything else for us?
I think we've covered what we can.
Okay. Let's go ahead and go on to recommendations then. I'll start out. I will say the first volume of Jason Aaron's Punisher Max run, Punisher Max Kingpin. Absolutely fantastic story. Great origin piece for Kingpin. I always recommend it to people, even if they are not a Punisher fan, because it's not a Punisher story. It is 100% about the Kingpin, which is great. What else? Fuck it. Watch the 2003 Daredevil film. It's not good, but Kingpin's awesome in it.
I can find good things in that movie, and he's one of them.
Yeah, exactly. I also really, the Spider-Man cartoon from the 90s is pretty good. He's absolutely fantastic in Spider-Verse. That is definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, I'd also, it's going to sound really weird, but whenever I read Kingpin, I hear that voice from the 90s cartoon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last recommendation I have is the mini-series from, I want to say it's 2017, that it was like 5 issues, and it's about a woman writing a biography on Kingpin.
Kingpin Born Against, that's the one.
Oh, is it? They might have named that. They might have named it that for like the trade or something, because it was just called Kingpin.
Yeah, that's what they called. I saw it, and that's what the trade was called.
Okay, yeah. That is a fantastic, or it's a pretty good series. It kind of drops off at the end, but what it does early on is really, really interesting and cool, and it kind of shows like the two sides of him, that he is a mean son of a bitch, but he does objectively good things. They might not be for the right reasons, but does that truly matter? There's some interesting questions in that series that I quite like it. How about you? What do you got?
I'm going to say Daredevil Born Again, because, of course, the Netflix series, especially Season 3, the Daredevil storyline by Ed Brubaker called Return of the King, which is Kingpin's re-rise to power. I'm trying to think of one more, of like one really good one. I guess Spider-Man number 50, his first appearance.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Well, Deadpoolzilla, thanks for joining me for this one.
Yeah, no problem. It's fun to be back together again.
Yay. All right, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
And I am the Don Juan of Comic-Con.
And we are your geeky gentlemen. And we will be discussing things.